We hope you've been having a wonderful, fruitful, networking filled day so far. Our next speaker is Pratibha from Meta. Pratibha is a tech lead and applied research scientist at Meta. She's a seasoned data science and machine learning professional dedicated to utilizing advanced AI technologies to address real world challenges and make a positive impact. Welcome, Pratibha.
Thank you, and glad to be here. Let me share my screen. Can everyone see my screen?
We can.
Okay, thank you. Um, so hi everyone, my name is Pratibha Rathore. I'm part of Applied Research Science team at Meta. And today I'll be giving a talk on responsible use of generative AI. Now, over the last year and a half, large language models or LLMs like ChatGPT have taken the world by storm. Whether it's being a customer service agent or creating marketing plans for your product campaigns, we are seeing step change in the performance of AI and its potential to drive enterprise value. As generative AI systems become more prevalent in our lives, it is extremely critical to understand how we develop and deploy these technologies in a responsible manner. In today's talk, we will discuss some key principles and considerations of using AI responsibly. Now, responsible artificial intelligence is an approach to developing, assessing, and deploying AI systems in a safe, trustworthy, and ethical way. Now, AI systems are a product of many decisions made by those who develop and deploy them. Now, from systems purpose to how people interact with AI systems, responsible AI can help proactively guide these decisions towards more beneficial and equitable outcomes. That means keeping people and their goals at the center of the system design decisions and respecting values like fairness, reliability, and transparency. Now, what is generative AI? The generative AI refers to AI models that can create original content such as text, images, video, audio, or software code in response to a user's prompt or request. These models leverage deep learning techniques to generate highly realistic and diverse outputs, revolutionizing creative workflows and content creation. Now, in my view, generative AI has a huge potential to positively impact employees' productivity and can augment human capabilities. These models are fantastic when it comes to creativity and brainstorming. However, they can pose potential risk and harm because of the probabilistic nature. On a high level, there are four major categories of potential risk and harm. First, bias and discrimination. Generative AI models can perpetuate and amplify societal biases that can lead to unfair outcomes for marginalized groups. Second, misinformation and manipulation. Gen AI models can create highly realistic content that can be exploited to spread misinformation. Third, privacy violations. Generative AI models are trained on enormous amount of data, which may contain sensitive information or personal information, and therefore concerns related to data privacy arises. And fourthly, unintended consequences. These, I would say, are unknown unknowns, where it could be hard to assess and mitigate the risk. Now, as we try to understand the risk and how we can mitigate the harms, we have to understand in which context the outcomes of these models are applied to. The risk associated with the output can vary depending on the application, whether you're using the outputs of the model to help with medical diagnosis, which is more riskier, or using it for creating marketing campaigns, which is less risky. Now, with these LLM models, we see a risk of hallucinations, and therefore we should be very careful when leveraging, the outcomes of these models for applications that requires accuracy-based reasoning, or where consistency of the outputs is needed, and sometimes even questions related to relevancy. Now, what are the ethical considerations when developing and deploying generative AI technologies? First, when developing and deploying generative AI system, it is our responsibility to ensure that the systems are fair and do not perpetuate discrimination. Second, we should be able to understand the limitations of these technologies and be honest about its capabilities. This is so important. We should promote transparency and ensure that AI systems can explain how it reached a certain decision in a way that is understandable to the users, what data it uses, and how it formulates the output. And finally, we should ensure safeguards are in place to protect personal and sensitive information. Now, let's talk about each of them a little bit more. When we talk about transparency and accountability, we mean three things with respect to AI systems. First, explainability. As a part of responsible development of AI systems, clearly communicate to the users how the system works and how it makes decisions. Second is auditability. Implement measures to evaluate and track impact of AI models on a frequent basis. And third, accountability. It is very critical to let users be aware of the terms and conditions when using generative AI systems and establish clear lines of responsibility and liability, and if possible, document them and share it with the users. Now, as we all know, one of the important aspects of responsible AI development is identifying and mitigating bias and ensuring fair outcomes. These large language models have inherent biases, and therefore it is critical to develop models that are which are developed through rigorous testing on a variety of scenarios, and we understand the confidence in the outputs that have been created. One of the very essential aspects is involving diverse teams in the designing of generative AI systems from the very beginning. Align with your legal teams, your policy, your risk and compliance team, and talk with them how you can test certain scenarios when leveraging these technologies, and so that the users can have a better experience and we can provide a safer system. These technologies are developed at a rapid pace. A new model comes every day. So the development team should ensure that they build the systems in a modular fashion so that new and safer models can be integrated in overall systems faster. Privacy and protecting user data is a very important aspect of responsible development of generative AI systems. First, we should use these pre-trained LLMs for intended use only. If you're fine-tuning the models, make sure you're using it only for, you're using only the relevant data and filter out all the sensitive information before feeding to the model. Second, make sure your data access controls are in place to prevent unauthorized access or misuse. Third, it is very important to take the consent of the user before processing any personal information if needed for the system. And fourth, empower users to access, modify, and delete their data used by the AI systems. Now that we know the best practices and guiding principles for building and deploying generative AI systems responsibly, how can we ensure right safeguards are in place? Now, a robust LLM-powered system encompasses both the foundational model and accompanying input and output safeguards, as well as a number of product-specific layers. At various points in the product development life cycles, developers make decisions that shape the objectivity and functionality of a feature, which can introduce potential risk. These decision points also provide opportunities to mitigate potential risk. High level, there are three major mitigation points: input level, model level, and output level. The input refers to the information provided by the user and passed on to the system. The developer do not have control of what user inputs. Without the implementation of input filters and safeguards, even the advanced models can potentially be manipulated to generate harmful or misleading outputs, which could violate content policies. All the safeguards to protect privacy and prevent potential harm can be developed by tuning the model. It should be expected that even with rigorous testing and design, those safeguards will not protect the performance and may be subverted. Additional safeguards, including direct filtering and engineering of the outputs, is needed. At the model level, we can further train the model with domain-specific dataset to improve the quality of the outputs on the defined use case. Fine-tuning adapts the model to domain or application-specific requirements and introduces additional layers of safety mitigations. Finally, based on the downstream use case, we can also apply several approaches to detect and filter the generated output of the models for problematic or policy violating content. These could include appropriate approaches like rule-based engines or classifiers, block lists to filter outputs, which could be based on policy. You can learn more about these guidelines recommended by Meta and open sourced at the link. Now, on a tactical level, these mitigations that we talked about require setting up intelligent alarm systems, or I should say technical interventions within your system design, which are powered by generative AI systems. Now, there are several open source programmable toolkits available that can be leveraged to steer the LLM to follow a predefined conversation path or defined behavior. To name a few, there is Guardrails Hub from guardrails.ai, and we have Nemo Guardrails from NVIDIA. From Meta, we have open source Purple Llama and Llama Guard, which provides developers guidelines on how to develop safer generative AI applications. Now, essentially, these guardrails can be ML-based or rule-based programs provided by your subject matter experts on a use case, or could be a combination of both. These guardrails can check for variety of things such as PII, personally identifiable information, hateful or toxic language, understand the user prompts that are likely to jailbreak the LLM to do something that it is not intended to do. Best part of using the open source toolkits is that you can customize and build on the top of these existing guardrails. Now, another great approach is to leverage supervisory AI agents for your use case. Now, here is a case study where a supervisory AI agent is used for a chat-based application using LLMs to answer legal questions for the users. Essentially, this AI agent is nothing but a LLM whose purpose is to evaluate the outputs of another LLM. Here you can see that we have 4 types of supervision. First, determining if the question a user or human asks to the chatbot AI system is within the scope of that particular AI system. If not, sending the question and the AI produced answer to the lawyer to review. Second, predicting if an input is a potential malicious attack, and if so, ending the interaction. Third, predicting if a personal data is in the input is provided as an input into the system, and if so, ending the interaction. And fourth, we illustrate one aspect of the user interface that enables better supervision. The system clearly labels whether the output is generated by a human or AI. Now, at the model level, we could leverage something called as guided decoding. Guided decoding techniques in generative AI involves steering the model's output to align with specific criteria constraints, or objectives. Let's see an example of a customer support chatbot with the focus of using responsible AI. The goal is to ensure that the chatbot provides accurate, helpful, and ethical responses while maintaining a positive customer experience. Now, as you see, first the customer provides their input. Then we have LLM decodes this input and generate initial candidate responses. During this decoding step, we can provide the LLM with additional constraints or ethical considerations. Next, we leverage guided decoding techniques. There are several of them, like beam search or top case sampling, and internal knowledge integration to get more contextual information about the user. This allows for retrieval augmented generation, where the knowledge is grounded in the factual data, along with avoiding any unnecessary details, ensuring customer privacy. To summarize what we talked about so far, in my opinion, we should follow a principled approach to using the power of generative AI techniques while ensuring risk mitigation strategies are in place. Risk assessment, leveraging diverse perspective, and inclusive design is the key. Before deployment at scale, do a thorough testing, and finally, keep ongoing checks and balances in the form of intelligent alarm systems in place to catch and rectify any harmful use before it becomes a bigger issue. Now, we are seeing that ethical and fair use of AI is an evolving area, and it's become the central theme for government and policymakers with the proposal of European Union AI Act and US National AI Initiative, which emphasizes transparency, human oversight, and robustness in AI systems. We are seeing many companies come together to establish standards to foster using generative AI responsibly. Generative AI is revolutionizing industries by automating complex tasks and providing innovative solutions. In my parting thoughts to conclude the presentation, I would say we cannot reduce the potential risk of AI models to 100%. But by acknowledging the limitation and intentionally addressing them, we can emphasize a more balanced approach that fosters innovation while ensuring ethical and responsible use of AI. Thank you.
Hi. Looks like you have just a minute or two if you want to answer a question. Do you see the Q&A tab? There's 2 questions in there. I don't know which one you could answer more quickly. It's about the chatbot. Do we need to train these bots?
I see one question. I'm a mobile app developer with 4 years of experience building mobile
That's in the chat. The Q&A is a different tab.
Okay, oh yeah. About the chatbot, do we need to train these bots? I think to start with, you can leverage the foundational models because training models do require resources, mostly in the form of infrastructure resources, and having a training data set that is a good quality training data set. So you could initially leverage your foundational models, but as we talked about, put the right guardrails in place, put the right interventions, technical interventions, and checks and balances in place so that you can reduce the risk of any harmful outputs for your users. And if you see, and then you need to make sure that your continuously monitoring the output. This is not a one-time done and dusted kind of, building this AI systems. You have to continuously monitor, test for scenarios, even if you have launched. And if you think that most of the times your system is not accurately representing the solution, then a smaller, high quality data set could be used to train the model, to fine tune the model, your pre-trained model, and that would ensure a safer product. So you don't have to do it in the first place, but you could start with your foundational models, build the guardrails, make sure that the guardrails and safety measures are in place, and then with the ongoing monitoring, if required, as a second step, you can fine tune.
All right, thank you. And that is time.